A very good afternoon to one and all present here. Welcome to second day of our webinar series organized by the Resource Provider Wing of the Comdeal Trust for you all to know and understand the many communicates that have been developed and published over the last 10 to 15 years. My name is Shilpa and I'll be your host along with Miss Ria today. So before we begin, a few reminders for all of you. So all of you, please mute yourself during the presentations, and during the question answer round, you can unmute and ask the question directly to the speaker. Also, kindly mute your videos for better audio quality, and we'll be taking up a certain number of questions at the end of each presentation. So save your questions till then, and you can also leave your questions in the chat box or can directly clarify them with the speaker. Moving ahead with our first presentation, taking us through ComDeal developmental checklist, scoring and interpretation. We have Miss Nirupama Shrikant. Some of you already know her since she was one of our presenter in previous webinar. But those of you who don't know her, I will be introducing her again. Ms. Nirupama has been working closely with Dr. Karant over the last 17 years. She has worked as clinical coordinator for the clinical programs running at the Comdeal head office until 2014. And I really consider myself fortunate to have worked with her in my first clinical experiences as a professional. She's a very passionate clinician, very patient guide and mentor. She is currently working as consultant for the Comdeal EI program at Care ADD Unit, St. John's Research Institute, Bangalore. It is indeed my pleasure to call upon Ms. Nirupama Shrikant to take over this presentation. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shilpa. So I think it'd be best if everyone can mute themselves, or if you all can just make sure that everyone mutes themselves. I hope I'm audible to everyone. Today, so welcome to the second series on Communicaids. I will be now talking to you all about the communication deal developmental checklist. So before I actually get on to this, to present about this, so this is one of the checklists that we had developed. But what I want to share with you is that before we actually use this, we have our own set of other assessments in terms of developmental and medical case history, and then you have the other areas. So we have the occupational therapist doing their assessment, the physiotherapist doing their assessment. But this is specific to a developmental checklist. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. And if there are any clarifications that you'll need at the end of the presentation, I'd be happy to answer. And if you're not able to answer, we'll get back to you with the answers at a later point. So this is the communication developmental checklist that I have with me here. So this checklist was developed in the year 2005-2006. It was a part of another project which Dr. Pratibha Karans had worked upon, and but the manual and the checklist was released in the year 2007. So assessing young children, as we all know, is quite a challenge. When we say it's a challenge, it's difficult and time consuming. And why do we say that? Because young children are not always responsive to formal methods of evaluation. So it's this about young children, children on a whole, very young children. It is difficult to put them onto a formal method of evaluation. And this holds true even for the difficult to test children, the population that we work with, the children who are in the spectrum, or children who have developmental disability. So hence checklists have become an accepted method of evaluating this population. And not many checklists are available for the Indian population. And when I say that checklists are an accepted method of evaluating this population, we say that it's a very widely used tool where we are just looking at identifying if there is the presence of a developmental delay. So when we use this, we get a basic understanding of the developmental skills of the child, and whether it's in one particular domain or across several domains. So not many checklists are available for the Indian population. So the indigenous tools are rare. The indigenous tools in India are rare. And we have largely relied on the Western literature, published Western literature and tools, and those are not those are culturally biased. So the few indigenous tools that we do have in local languages will target either only one aspect of development. They could target just motor or language, or and we also find that we can't use it across multiple disabilities also. So ComDeal then, it is this at this point that we felt that ComDeal required a tool that could assess across domains, different developmental domains. We needed to have one tool that would look at motor, language, cognitive, social, and emotional skills, and for children below 6 years. So we also wanted this tool not just for ComDeal, that is not just for the population of children who are in ASD, but we were also looking at it to cover a wide range of children with developmental disabilities. This is important because we need to remember that this is not a diagnostic tool. Okay, it rather is. Uh, when we say that it's not a diagnostic tool, just I'm so sorry, I changed the slide. Yeah, it's not a diagnostic tool. It serves as indicators to the clinician of a child's functioning across several domains. It provides a reported observational summary of the child's performance at a particular time. It's very simple and user friendly. So when I talk to you about it, you'll understand why we say it's simple and user friendly. So I said it has 8 domains, which I'll talk about. So each team member will get an overview of a child's strengths and weaknesses. And as we see it and with our experience, the whole idea of having the developmental checklist was that it provides a framework within which we can plan our intervention. So you start with the profile as the base in intervention, and so when you start with the profile as a base in intervention, which often enables formal assessment at a later date. So you start intervention with this, and then you can look at a formal assessment at a later date. So if I may just summarize this slide, the profile obtained indicates the functioning of the child as compared to his peers, to the same age children in 8 domains. So you can use it as a quick screening instrument, and it will enable the clinician to obtain an estimate of the child's developmental skills. So it will serve as a guide, as I've mentioned in my last point, that it will serve as a guide for the need for intervention. So the moment you use this checklist, you can actually convey to the parents as to why the child does need intervention. Where are the gaps, or what are his strengths, what are his weaknesses? So that becomes what we very often and very commonly use in ComDeal as the baseline for intervention. And subsequently, you can also use it to monitor the progress that you are making with the child over a period of time. So since 2008, all children assessed in the ComDeal units, not just in Bangalore, but or in and around Bangalore, but across the country, we've been using the CDDC for assessment. And the distinct profiles obtained on these checklists are just not for ASD, but also for other developmental disorders. So for all of you who attended our first series where we spoke about the FMIP, and Dr. Kant mentioned that we are doing it for other developmental disabilities in Varanasi, and I think the other center was in Ranchi. They are working with other developmental disabilities, and they are using the same checklist. So, in that, the first Stephen had presented, I had mentioned that the assessment is the backbone of a sound, good intervention program. So, in this checklist, you're basically looking at 8 developmental domains. So, we're looking at motor skills, the gross motor, fine motor, and activities of daily living. You're looking at the child's communication skills, both receptive and expressive, and social, emotional, and cognitive skills. So it covers the age range of 0 to 6. It is a standard. These are standardized checklists, which was done on 360 typically growing young Indian children. So one-to-one assessments are carried out, and observations are used along with inputs from the parent or a significant caregiver who knows the child very well. So it's very important that we cross-check responses to check for reliability of the reported response of what the family gives. And like any other assessment when you're doing with children, the materials chosen should be ideal to test the skills and the age range of the child. Hence, knowing the checklist is important. So it's good if one can just practice it on typically growing children before you actually try it out with the difficult to test population. So you start with the lowest age level and go to the highest, that is still the age of the child and within the age appropriate level in each category. So this is important when I talk about cross-checking responses to check for reliability of reported response. I am saying that if clinician is uncertain of the response of the child, in any particular uh, item, it's best to revisit the item after a few days. So so you don't have to finish everything at that stipulated 45 minutes assessment that you do. And it's at this point, I think it's also important for us to remember that children with ASD present optimum behavior and response when they are in a familiar surrounding or when they are at ease. And often we do these assessments in our clinical setup. So that's why you should record the parent's observation and then you must verify the same subsequently when the child visits the clinic or over when you may start intervention and you may start some basic intervention, but you don't want to give your report to them. So you make your observation and take a combination of both. So, so now I'll be talking to you about the 5-point rating scale that we use, which is very unique to the CBTC. And Communicaids innovation has worked towards refining the scoring of the CDDC. And just please, what we have done here is there's a revised, why have we used this revised scoring method? Because we want the clinician to objectively measure a skill. So instead of just putting a tick mark or a cross, we thought that this works a lot better. So I'll first just read out the scores that you can give. If you're looking at the items on the checklist, if you give the child a score of 4 on a particular scale.
Ma'am, I'm extremely sorry. I need to stop you in between. I request all participants to please mute your mics. Please ensure you all have muted your mics, please. There's a huge disturbance during the presentation. Please mute your mics. Please ensure you have if we have not. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So so I'll just go back about this 5-point rating scale. So Communicaids innovation has worked towards refining the scoring of the CDDC. So instead of just marking a tick or a cross, what we thought was if a clinician can objectively measure a skill, it will really help them in their intervention program. So I'll just first read out the 4-point rating scale. So if there's an item on your checklist and the child is showing consistent responses in all situations, you'd give him a score of 4. You'd give him a score of 3 when we say when it's consistent but in specific situations, and that's with reference to generalization. So if the skill is not generalized, you'd give the child 3. If there is inconsistency and you feel that it's an emerging skill, you'd give a score of 2. If there's regressions seen in any of the items that you assessed, you'd give it a score of 1. If the child does not have a response, it's 0, and there's no response that doesn't fit into any of the above, and there is no response that you see in the child, you just write NR. So it's important that you mark, I mean, this is something that we all know, but I'd have to say, you mark to the child's age level or till he plateau of skills is seen. I just want to speak a little more in terms to make you understand this better, because I think this is where the strength of the checklist is, especially if you're looking at using this, since I have mentioned that it's not a diagnostic tool and it forms the basis for your intervention program. I just want to explain this with a few examples. So if a child is to be assessed on a skill like can he clap hands, the skill is clap hands, and So as the clinician, I'm observing that he can clap hands, but it's during the imitation of a song with a mother. And the response of the parents is that he claps his hands very well. So here I'd give him a score of 3 because I'd say that it's consistent but in specific situations, which means that he's not able to do it with me, but the parents say he claps very well. So we're looking at generalization of the skill. So he has the skill, but it's in specific situations. And as I mentioned earlier, a child with ASD is shows you the best responses in an environment which is familiar and which he's used to. So he does it very well with his parents. So I really don't need to take it up as a goal within my clinic. Another example that I would say is pointing to long and short objects. So in this, so you'll have to look at every skill with your own observation and what the parents respond. And then you can reach a consensus as to what score you want to give. So my response is that he understands short, but his understanding of long is limited. So I'm looking at assessing short if the child understands short and long. And the parents say that the skill is just being taught at school. So here we'd give him a score as 2 because we'd see it more as emerging. So it's not inconsistent, but it's emerging. So I think if there's a clarity on this, it works really well, and it is extremely helpful when you need to look at framing your intervention program as to what objectives need immediate attention and what can be worked on by the parents at home. So this is a sample profile, and those of you who had attended our first series will be a little familiar with this. So this is how we visually depict it, and there's a lot of transparency when we're communicating our result, whatever assessments we've done to our parents. It's usually very appealing to them because they clearly, when you give a color code and you give a score, it helps them understand what are the areas. They naturally look for the areas which are difficult or with the areas that need to be worked upon. And we as clinicians would like to draw their attention to the strengths that their child has. So I think you kind of, when you are sitting with with the family to explain what assessments you do, it kind of balances out both because you can talk of using the strengths to address its weaknesses. And so if you look at this, we've used so the same 4-point rating scale is given a color code. And so the reds and yellows are the ones that I would have to choose to work on and which has areas of concern. The light green ones, which are given a score of 3, are the ones which need to be worked on in generalization. And the green, which has a score of 4, is indicated that the child has already achieved those skills. So, but for a very clear understanding of a child's profile, you can get a very clear understanding. So I explained to you that we look at 8 developmental domains, but we divide them into motor, communication, and cognitive social skills. So within each of it, so within a subdomain in motor, you can get a total score and a percentage of the gross motor. And then the same thing you'd get for his fine motor and activities of daily living. So you get a subtotal and you can calculate a percentage. And then you can get for each of the domains you can do that, and then you can get an overall the total across all 8 domains, and you can get a percentage. So how does this actually help you? This I can explain with the next profile where we use this. So I said, so we've been saying this from day one that you need to have a solid assessment which will help you plan a good intervention program. And this profile, clearly, very evidently conveys this to you all. So we believe that you must, so we are talking of timely assessments. And if you can recall the first day when I spoke, I also said that the time frame needs to be kept in mind. Of course, that I was talking to you all with reference to our communication early intervention group program. But I think even in our individual sessions, the time frame is something that you all need to be very alert about, given that intervention for children with ASD is a long drawn process, and the changes are very gradual. So it's very easy for a therapist to just get lost into the areas that I've chosen, or what are the areas that I need to give immediate focus to. So what we believe is that you have a baseline, and then you baseline that is on the left side of my slide, if you can see my cursor here. And after 5 months, I do my midterm assessment. And again, after 5 months, this is my final assessment. So when I spoke about the 4-point rating scale, I said what parents want to see is all greens, and which is clearly showing at the end of 10 months of intervention. So here, so in the initial assessments, so these were the areas that I would choose to work upon. The reds and the yellows is the ones that I wish to work upon. And as you can see in the middle profile, it very clearly shows the parents can actually see in the gains that he's made. I don't know how clear it is, but if I just take up his receptive, his receptive language is around 38%, and it moves up to almost 75% in his midterm assessment. So he's made such a significant gain in his understanding of language, and that's how you can so objectively express it to the parents that the gain he's made in percentage when you calculate the total and a percentage. So at the right end, what I'm showing is the child's almost achieved age-appropriate skills. Okay, so most of it is green, and you have to assess till his age. So this is how you would, using the checklist that I've shown you here, you'd actually, and using a 4-point rating scale, you can actually visually depict to the parents as to what are the skills that I need to target on, and how the 2s then go into 3s, and then they become a 4. Okay, and how the first 0s need to get a score of 2. So that becomes, it's more transparent. It's easier for the parents to understand as to what you are targeting. So the points to remember is that a checklist certainly helps in both the therapist as well as the parents to understand both the strengths and weaknesses across domains. So what we are doing when we use the checklist is that we're not looking at one specific domain. Because the child with ASD, we already spoke about it. You need to have a multidisciplinary team. So you're profiling the child's overall skills. And there are a few things that we'll share with you in this webinar. That is, while marking, it's important to go beyond the level at which a child begins to plateau. So if you are looking, so when I say plateau, so he's just having 2, 2, 2, 2, or he's just having a 0, 0, 0. But I think you need to go up, because till his age, I would say just check all the skills. So there may be skills in the higher ages, even after he plateaus, of course, but you don't go beyond his chronological age. There will be skills at the higher ages which should be given credit. And that's because some children show gaps in development. So some of the lower skills may not be there, but he may have another way of responding at the higher level skills within his age, of course. And we must remember that even some skills, when he plateaus, some skills below that plateau level also may not be attained. So you have to be very careful, and it just can't be something that you will mark by just asking the parents. Often that's it. You just ask the parents and you mark. It's important that's why I said you can revisit a skill after a short period of time. So in case of regression, we should keep a note of the skills that was lost, and we should only mark the ones that the child is demonstrating right now. So he regressed, but he picked up. So we don't usually mark that as regression then. And the point that I just want to emphasize again, which I've already done, is that while assessing, we must remember that relying heavily on parents' interview alone can give you skewed results. And if you observe the child in subsequent sessions, observing the child in subsequent sessions or in the first few weeks of the program is an absolute must and essential. So this is the link that I've shared with you, and we're very proud to say that this manual is now available in English, Kannada, Hindi, and Bengali. You could check on our website and place your order. And we're very open to feedback on how this checklist has worked for you with specific populations. And if you look into, so I haven't really spoken to you about the profiles that we've shown when we use this with cerebral palsy children or children with mental retardation. It's there in the profile, or you could use this even with children who have verbal dyspraxia. So you'll find that you have clear gaps in his fine motor and ADL and expressive language and his social skills. So the profiles, you use this, and then you really know that you can get different profiles for different developmental disabilities. So we're open to any suggestions, modifications of content, how comprehensive it is, and so we'd be happy if If you pick up a copy, use it and share it with us. Thank you. So, is it Riya or Shilpa?
Yeah, we are open to taking up questions with respect to the CDDC right now. So if any of you have questions, you can either put them in the chat box or you can direct them to the speaker, unmute yourselves and direct them to the speaker.
So I can see some questions in my chat box actually. Someone wanted to know. Can you please explain? 1 minute. Riya, would you be doing that or should I?
Yeah, I'll just, one of them did want to know how to do the percentage scoring.
So it's just as simple as you do any percentage scoring. So you look at, so you're going to look at the total. So if so you have, suppose you're assessing till item number 20 or 21. So you look at, so 21 into 4, okay, that becomes your denominator. And then you look at what scoring you've given to your child. So if it's a 3, 2, 1. And then you calculate like any, like you just do a percentage scoring. That's all. The score you've got over the total score into 100. That's how you do the percentage score.
Yeah, I think you'd also need to use, I mean, get to know how the CDC is, how it works. And then, I mean, you'll need a detailed training on that.
You'll need a detailed training on that. You'll need to understand how to. So I've just very briefly spoken to you about when you need to give a 4, or 4 is pretty straightforward. I'm sorry, a 3 versus a 2. So I think, or a 0. So and also that you need to, you don't see the response in the clinic, but so you'll need to revisit that particular skill at a week later. So I think that's how a training would become essential to help you to use it accurately.
Ma'am, Sonali wants to know, how about your experience on online consultations with the manual?
Yeah, so this is the new normal for all of us, and we just started it. So, so what we've been doing at CareEd in St. John's is that so we first ask the parents, and then we've been following it up with videos on particular skills that we ask them to record and show it to us. And then the report will have a liner saying that this has just been done on an online assessment. And since now we're slowly opening up to face-to-face, we're looking at we actually give them scenarios which they have to do with the child, and then they share it with us. But it's been a little tricky. Perhaps in a month or so I'd be able to give you more substantial, a more concrete answer. I don't know, the head office has any other inputs, they could share that.
Yes, actually for our online consultations, the profile that Nirupama ma'am showed you all, sample profiles, the color-coded chart is what we actually share with parents during our consultations, whether it's face-to-face or in the online or the video mode. We share the profiles with them and explain to them what are the areas, which are the areas that have delays, how much of delays, and specifically which are the skills that are zeros or twos and that need to be worked upon in our intervention for the child. So that color-coded chart is what we use to help parents understand what we need to do further for the child.
I think there's one question about no response in 0.
Yes. So what about the fields marked as no response? Do they need to be observed later on?
Yeah. So when we say 0, we're saying the child has just not acquired it. He's been given exposure, to to try the skill, but it's not been learned or acquired. When we say no response, that means they just don't know about the skill at all. So there is no exposure. There is um, the parents have no idea about the skill that they've never tried. So we say no response then. So when we say 0, it's that he's been given some exposure to try the skills, but he hasn't learned or acquired it. So that's when we say the more you do it, that's when you start getting a hang of it, as I have understood. I hope I've answered the question.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Let me check.
Any other questions?
But it is a wonderful tool, and I think why I'd say it's a wonderful tool. I think it's also important the way you use it to assess. That's when you understand how wonderfully it works and how it feeds into your intervention program. And that you can actually share with parents, why are you working on a particular skill, or what is the need for the importance to generalization, which we so often miss. And so I think that can be very beautifully conveyed when you do the CDPC. And it's so clear to the parents as to what you've chosen, why you've chosen it, and how the child's profile moves.
Yes, ma'am. A couple of questions more.
Okay.
What are the 2 things to keep in mind while using the manual?
What are the 2 things? Okay, what are 2
Okay.
things to keep in mind? Okay, I for me it would be that I would say that you don't mark things by just taking a parental input. That would be the first thing. And I think it's easy to get confused with the 4-point rating scale if you don't know how to assess the child. So I would say that you need to try it out several times. That's the 2 important things that I would say if you need to use it to full justice and do justice to each of the items. That's my opinion. Those are 2 important things.
Yes, so some of them had a question about whether the interval between the reassessments that we're doing of the CDDC always should that be a 5-month interval, or so the interval between the review of skills?
Yeah, I think it's better that it's 5 months. Because that's when you can, because the changes are slow and gradual. And if you're looking at, that's because you have to look at stabilizing the skills, right? So to get a 4, the child has to be able to generalize it. So I think it's better you do that. And we are doing it, after 5 months, even though we see the children every day. And if you're looking at individual therapy where you see the child just twice a week or thrice a week, then the intensive nature of your therapy is certainly less. So I would suggest that it's 5 months is good.
Yes, ma'am. Bhuvana wanted to know a little more about inconsistent versus emerging.
So inconsistent, like I said, that he will show it with me today, and he may not show it with me tomorrow. I'd call that inconsistent. Emerging is when he's learning it. He's learning it with me, and he's doing it with his mother, and he does it well. So that's again a very close, a very thin line, I would say, with emerging, is where he's just been taught the skill. So that's why he attempts it, but it's not completely shown to you. So it's been introduced, and it's not. The emerging can be confused with specific situations, but I wouldn't see it that way. So you've taught the skill. So there's when you work with the child, that's when you actually see emerging. So he's kind of doing it, but he doesn't probably complete the skill completely, complete the skill. That's when I put it as emerging. And I wouldn't put it as, so when you actually to differentiate emerging and versus, the score of 3 that you put, the difference would be that it's clearly there at home or is in a specific situation. So clearly there at therapy and not at home. Versus in emerging, that he's attempting to do it, but it's not a complete attempt. I see it that way. Yes. anyone else has anything to say, you could share county head office. But this is how I would like to assess the, make a differentiation between inconsistent and emergent.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, she says he does it with me alone. It's not necessarily only that.
Yes. Okay, there was a comment saying that there is an online version of this available on the Rhythm, which is a software which we have developed. Basically, this thing is a digitized version of the CDDC. We have the digitized version of all our assessment tools, whatever assessment tools we're using in our assessment battery, which is accessible only for the affiliates as of now, the head office and the affiliates. So you need to be an affiliate, one, and you need to purchase the software to have access to the digitized version of the assessment tools. So without that, you cannot access the assessment tools on the Rhythm. So just to clarify that.
Yeah.
Shilpa, anything you'd like to add?
No, I think we have one more question. Okay, so that is not relevant to this topic. Do you follow any specific key? Do you follow any? Can you unmute yourself and ask the question? What do you mean by that?
Yeah,
Do you
maybe I
follow
can
any?
answer it actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, do you
Understood.
follow
prompts
any specific key for prompts used with the
with the
kids?
kids.
So is
I
that
mean,
with reference to assessments or with
I
internet?
Yes.
think it is with respect to, I mean, how do you score, how do you decide how to score a child on specific skills when prompts are used, physical prompts, visual prompts? I think that's the
Yeah, so
question.
that you
Yeah.
would, so if you're using prompts, whatever the prompt is, if it's a verbal or you're using a verbal prompt, usually we initially use all prompts, right? You use verbal, you use your hands, you use your, it's overall prompting that we do use. With even with your eyes, you're pointing towards, whatever response you want with the child. So then I'd still score it as a 2. I wouldn't give it a 3. Because what you would see within specific situation is if the child knows the skill, quite well there. So that's how I would look at it. And you'd use the same hierarchy of prompts that you have been using. So if it's non-verbal and it's just probably a mild gestural one, then I would still give it a score of 2.
Right.
Yeah, that's, I
Just to
think I already.
answer Miss Roja's question, so specific patterns seen for
Yeah,
specific
oh yeah,
conditions, I
that's
think
what
you
I spoke
definitely
about.
need to pick up a copy of the CDDC manual so that you have an understanding, one, of how the assessment is done, the scoring pattern, and all of that. And we also have put in sample profiles of children with ASD, with SLI, etc. So you'll have an idea of what kind of patterns we see. Yeah, we
Yeah,
have
I
sample
think,
profiles.
yeah, you should actually, because it clearly displays profiles for different conditions, and it makes your intervention so easy, deciding what you should focus on intervention. All right, I think I've overshot my time.
Yes.
Let Lakshya take over. All right.
I just would like to add one thing for all of you. I think some of you already have CDDC manual and are using it,
Yes.
and few of you have a query that if that you have seen the color profile and how to do the color profile on a hard sheet, which is so my answer to that is it's not possible. So we are using a rhythm software which gives us a color coded profile. So CDDC is open to purchase, but for color coding you need to purchase the rhythm software,
Soft.
as Ria mentioned. Yeah, so we give it to our affiliates as of now. Any other questions?
I think we can go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to our next presentation, Miss Lakshmi Priya will be taking us to PLS, that is prerequisite learning skills intervention. So she was also there as one of our presenters in our previous webinar, but I would like to introduce her once again. Miss Lakshmi Priya is a senior developmental educator who has been with the Comdeal Trust since September 2007, and she is currently coordinating the group programs running at the head office, and she is what we call our quiet strength and support. Over to you, Lakshmi.
Okay, thank you, Shilpa, and good afternoon to everyone. Here I am going to talk about our Comdeal intervention manual for prerequisite learning skills. In this manual, you can find out activities, PLS activities for toddlers and preschoolers. And this is the manual we released in the year 2010. What are prerequisite learning skills? All the prerequisite learning skills are developmental in nature. It is now well established that there are certain prerequisite learning skills that facilitate learning in general and the development of language and communication in particular. At Comdeal, we focus on 4 key prerequisite learning skills, that is eye contact and eye gaze, joint and sustained attention, sitting tolerance, and compliance. These skills are crucial in the early years of children's skill development and especially in the ASD population that we work on. PLS skills form a foundation or basis for further learning. The skills of sitting and watching, attending or concentrating on objects and people form the foundations of learning and are important to further learning. Once the prerequisite learning skills settle down, we could see great changes in children's understanding or the receptive language skills. This is something clearly it is shown in our documentation. The purpose of the manual, why we thought about this manual, I think children with ASD have significant PLS issues. They have difficulties in eye contact, joint and sustained attention, sitting tolerance, and compliance to other directed instructions or activities. In the early years of initiation of the Comdeal program, the PLS skills were addressed along with other developmental skills. However, on realizing the importance of these skills in subsequent learning, we started to focus on just PLS for 2 to 3 months when the child is joined the program. I think the PLS, again, very important for a child to understand about his surroundings, his environment, awareness about the people. This way, again, the PLS is very important. Plus, I think we all, understand that the transition issues they have, the transition from self-directed activities to other directed activities means they are very much focused to their high interested activities, but they may not give attention to other directed activities, or from again transition from one particular person or one particular therapist to another therapist, or from parent to another person. Means again I will say familiar to unfamiliar people, or even I want to mention here individual versus group also. Means individually also we have to look at child's PLS skills. Means the child has to sit with us, listen to us, giving eye contact to us, even following our instructions. The same PLS we have to work it in the group situation also. Means mainly in our group program, in the first half an hour of the group session, we focus in our group program there are 12 children. So there we are always focusing the first half how to build PLS skills in the group situation. Means the child has to sit with all his friends plus listening to the therapist instructions also. So the PLS building in individually plus group situation is very important, because in the group, again, I will say it is very crucial for the success at school also, because in the school, I think you all are understanding, the children has to sit, listen to the teacher and following their instructions. So that is something COMTAIL we are focusing by our group therapy. And all these issues to solve, we came up with the manual, the prerequisite learning skills manual. In this manual, again, the manual provides multidisciplinary intervention to children. What I meaning here is, because here all three professionals, they have to give a big role. They have a big role in this stabilization of PLS in the beginning time. Here I would like to take your attention to that in this manual there are toddlers and preschoolers. There are two areas are.
पिछली बार मैं हेडफोन लगाया था ना, तो मुझे याद नहीं था.
Toddler prerequisite learning skills. There we are focusing activities to enhance joint attention and to build eye contact. Again, there we have mentioned
Lakshmi.
activities to yes.
Lakshmi, sorry, 1 second.
Yes.
All participants, please mute your mics. It is interfering in the presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. So in this manual, there are toddler activities to enhance joint attention and to build eye contact, activities to enhance sustained attention and sitting tolerance, and even we have mentioned sensory motor activities. After the toddler section, we can move on to the preschool section. Preschool area, there also again we have divided into 3 levels of activities. Beginning level, basic group PLS activities added. Intermediate level, little complex. Again, advanced level, little more complex activities are given in the manual. These all activities again follows the normal developmental pattern, and activities are very easy to understand for any person, and it is very practical to use also. Here I thought to talk about the PLS manual contents. In this manual, you will be able to find out there is an introduction page about what are prerequisite learning skills. You will be able to see directions for use and interpretation. Again, a few suggestions how to do with the child, how to conduct activities at home, do's and don'ts. Again, you will be able to see there is a right upon building on compliance. After this, you will be seeing the activities, toddler activities, sensory motor activities, and preschooler prerequisite learning skill activities. This is again the manual contents. Few activity name I have listed here from the manual for the joint attention and eye contact games, bubble games, bindi game, hide and seek, tickle me or tickle game, blow me up. So there are different activities we have mentioned. Very few I have listed here. And if you look at the sustained attention and sitting tolerance game, there are few activities again I have listed here. Water-based games, transferring game, rolling game, picture book, art fun, again musical fun. And if you will go to the preschool session, I think you can see from the picture only, you can see this is the activity, preschooler PLS activities we should conduct in group settings only. So sometimes again our issue is parents always say they don't have other children to play with their child. So we are encouraging parents to participate with the child in the beginning, slowly try to conduct with even see these are the activities therapists can conduct in their clinics, even in the preschool classrooms or daycare settings, and even children's homes also. So here in this preschooler PLS activity should conduct in group settings. So again, I already mentioned there are 3 levels again we have mentioned in this preschool section. Beginners level, few activities I have mentioned here, intermediate level and advanced level. This is the PLS manual available in English, Kannada and Hindi. Even who are interested to purchase, please log into www.communicaids.com. I would like to demonstrate two, three activities here. So I will be stop sharing the screen. I hope everybody can see. This is again a bubble solution. I think most of us will use in our session, or even parents also maybe tried. So I would like to show here how we are looking PLS skills via bubble solution, bubble activity. Okay, so here I have a child, means I can't demonstrate with a child. So I'm just letting you know the child's PLS skills are poor, no eye contact, no attention to the directed activity. So here how I am trying to take child's initiating to eye contact and joint attention. Just I am looking only the initiation. Maybe the child may give attention to fraction of second, only child may give attention to this activity. Okay. So this is something just we are trying to, okay, maybe I will be calling the child called Johnny. Johnny, look, bubbles. Okay, so here I may got only fraction of second only his eye contact or attention. Maybe using the same bubble solution, we can try for sustained attention. Again, I won't say 1 minute, maybe 10 seconds or 5 seconds to 10 seconds. I hope you all were, or everybody were looking at me. It's the same way. I will say our children also give attention to this kind of activities. So I tried to make the bubbles big bubble. So there we can expect child sustained attention also. One more activity I thought to share here is, this is something very simple, easy to make at home. Everybody's home, there will be a transparent bottle. And here I have used thermocol beads. Careful with this bead. So what you can do, this lid, you can stick with sellotape or something, and put a hole here and put the straw. So this is again for the eye contact, initiation of eye contact or the joint attention only. So what we can share the child with, okay, let's shake, see, look, Johnny, shake. And after this, we can try. I think you could see the balls are flying, and the child's attention, we can take it via this particular activity. And the last one I would like to demonstrate here is, this is again in our instead of piggy bank or coin box. Maybe most of us are aware about that coin box. Here I'm showing there is again the transparent box. Home available material only, everyone's home it will be there. And this is the activity we can improve sitting tolerance and even attention and concentration, even eye hand coordination also. So here some beads are here, another box, and even we can encourage the child to close the lid, close, help, close, and asking the child to put the bead through this hole. So even we can encourage the child to, we can give the word press. So from our experience, this is a very good activity for sitting tolerance and attention to build. And, this is the manual. There are only, I have demonstrated only 3 activities. There are 100+ activities in this available in this manual. Yeah, any Ria?
Anyone has any questions? You can unmute yourself and please ask the speaker. Are there any questions?
No question.
Yes.
You can leave your questions in the chat box also. We'll take them up for you.
मैम पीएलएस ऐड करने के लिए जैसे कहा है ना आपने एक्टिविटी बहुत सारी, तो उसमें ये भी तो होता है ना, एक्टिविटी कई बार बच्चा बिल्कुल भी नहीं करने को तैयार होता, फिर पीएलएस कैसे सेट?
Okay, Lakshmi, you want to take that up, or Shilpa?
Yeah, so Lakshmi, she's asking that, you know, a child just not is just not interested in anything. Okay, and he's just not ready to do anything with the parent. In that case, how would you stabilize the PLS?
Okay, so there we should first follow child's interest, maybe whatever child's favorite activity. We should follow the child, and slowly you have to bring child's attention to our activity. Most of the time we could see children will be will pay good interest to bubble solution or play-doh activities or kind of musical toys. So first you should choose, you should find out what is child's favorite activity, and in the beginning only we can't force the child, you have to sit with me and continue do the activities. First we should encourage whatever child's like, how we can involve in child's activity. Slowly we can develop a schedule for the child. Even visual schedule we can look there, but that is something slowly we can do. Even in our coming webinar, the visual kit we are going to introduce, so you can see via visuals how we can prepare the child for a adult directed activity session. So initially you should just follow child's interest and let the child feel okay, they are not coming to disturb me, they are also enjoying with me. Later slowly the trust building with the child is very important here.
Lakshmi, there are few questions. Miss Renuka, आप yeah. मिस रेणुका, आपको समझ में आ गया मिस लक्ष्मी ने जो बोला?
ओके ओके मैम,
Yeah, okay. There are few questions in the chat box. So Miss Chandrima wants to ask, is it something we recommend to parents or purchase, or it should be used only by the therapist?
No, parents can purchase and they can do at home. Means the activities are very simply explained, so parents can use at home.
Hello,
Are there
ma'am.
any? Yes, please tell.
Ma'am, before you start off with any activities with the kids, would you do a preferential assessment with each kid before you start?
Yeah, yes, we will do a ComDeal assessment. We have a pre-requisite learning skill assessment form also. Maybe in the beginning of first webinar, I think you already understood we have a CDDC checklist. So ComDeal developmental checklist. We have a different assessment we have.
Which
Thank you,
includes the prerequisite skills also.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have an assessment for PLS, assessment for oromotor. So we do a complete battery of assessments, which includes PLS, and that will tell us exactly what we need to work on with the child. Which areas? Is it sitting tolerance? Is it compliance, joint attention, or sustained attention? Which area? According to that, we take up goals from the intervention manuals and work on.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
There's one more question from Sonali. Are there specific PLS activities for hearing impaired children?
Yeah, these activities we can use for hearing impaired children also. We are trying the same.
So may I just add on that? So Sonali,
Yeah.
there's no specific PLS for the hearing impaired kids. But if you do, so in my own career, I had seen one child who had hearing impairment as well as he had a few features of ASD. So we did use some of the same activities and it worked quite well. And I think it would work. There's nothing specific, but if you are working with hearing impaired kids, you could probably make some modifications in the listed out activities that we've shared in this manual. If I may also answer the first question, Shilpa, that the lady was asking where the child has no interest.
Yes, ma'am.
I think all of us have had that experience where we have children with no interest. So usually with such children, I take two approaches. Okay, I just switch on my video. So I take two approaches with such children. One is where I would just continue doing these. I'd be a very stubborn therapist and continue with some of these. So once you start working with these kids, there's something that as a therapist, you'll always have intuition of what works and what doesn't work. And that's something that's not given in any manuals. It's your own experience, it's your own connect with the child. So as much as you have that child who's just not doing anything, there'll be something that you'll tune into, but perhaps maybe after 3 or 4 weeks. But for those first 2-3 weeks, which is extremely, it's tiring and it's a trying period for you, I'd say choose around 4-5 from the manual and just go on doing it. Don't involve the child. He's not expected to look. And that's where what Lakshmi Priya said about the trust building. Child starts to see you not as a person who's threatening him, who's trying to, you're trying to get him out, but he'll start moving towards you. And then we also recommend that there will be something that we would have missed out, because in our, I think you want that child to work with you, you want that child to sit, you want the child to pay attention. In that somehow we miss out on what could have been. If there was no delay, you'd have tuned into what else he could be interested in. But because we get caught up with the delay, don't get tuned to that. So there'll be one or two things, maybe a bath time, maybe it could be with meals itself. So that's where you use the PLS and make a modification of these activities in his meal time or in his bath time. But yeah, the first 3-4 weeks can be quite difficult, as I said, tiring and a trying period for both the child as well as the therapist.
Yes, ma'am. And I think when we do the PLS assessment and also move on to doing the PLS activities during therapies, we do make a mention of, we do see a range of these children's skills. There are things he will definitely give eye contact to. Those can be immediate needs, like personal needs. So when he's hungry and wants something, or when he's or you have a favorite toy of his. So when he is playing with a familiar toy, he would probably give good eye contact, or probably even sit for longer or give good attention, versus something that he has no interest in at all, where you see poor skill. So you do see a range, especially in children on the spectrum. So we do mention that range, and as in for high interest activities, there are fairly good skills, versus for low interest activities there are poor skills. So we do make that mention, so that whoever is working with the child during intervention actually considers that. So we also make mention of what are the things that the child has high interest in, versus what are the activities which the child finds difficult, or does not like, or is not exposed to, so therefore does not give attention. So that we work from, we start with things that are of high interest, get the child to act doing the activities, and then slowly move to mid-interest activities, and slowly move to maintaining these even for activities of low interest. So that's the hierarchy we follow when we do PLS, and actually any skill for that matter, but specifically PLS. Yeah. So I hope that gives a little bit of input as to how to work on a child who has very, very poor skills, or who's a beginner learner. We would follow that hierarchy. We would take the child's lead initially. Like Nirupama ma'am mentioned, we'll just have to keep the child out of the activity if he's not interested, but we're still giving him the opportunity to actually explore something new that we're doing with him. So we'll do it. He might join in for a couple of minutes and then take it on from there, with respect to attention, sustained attention, sitting tolerance, compliance, all of that. So all of that will take a while to come. It won't come in the first 2-3 sessions even, maybe.
Okay, we'll just take the last question. And then maybe if anyone has queries later, you can email us. Lakshmi, are there any tips how to do transition from mother to teacher?
Yeah, using visuals, we can try introduce. And yeah, means I think the preparing the child via visuals. What the question from teacher, mother to teacher?
Transition.
Mother to teacher. Okay, so yeah, with the visuals only we can try. The preparing the child means okay, the child is going to the session. That kind of a picture means like a clinic. Child is going to a clinic or school. Okay, the picture of child going to school, and the next picture can be child is meeting the teacher, saying hello or good morning, kind of a shake hand, giving a shake hand picture. And next picture can be like a child is sitting with the mother, sorry, the teacher. The picture, with the pictures we can prepare the child. Anything?
Yeah, I'll add to that. So I think what I would also do in addition to what Lakshmi is doing is, so I'd have that the mother is with the child in my session, the mother's behind the child, how we do it in our pre-deal group, which we spoke about in our first webinar. And I do that for almost 3 to 4 weeks, 3 weeks maybe. And then I'd slowly have the mother sit away and we'd sit in a circle, or, we'd have her as a partner. We'll become 3 in a team then. So first it's 2 versus 3. That's how I'd like to do the transition. And at some point you build such a beautiful relationship. So by then what happens when you start working on the PLS, we spoke about this in our first webinar, you see the receptive language moving up, and something that your communication or speech language therapist hasn't even worked upon. So once you have that, then the transition really becomes easy. So I would vouch for that in terms of working on PLS. So then you work on it in this way. The transition will take around 2 to 3 weeks, or sometimes even 4. But it happens, and we've just had that experience in the unit we started CareEd, and they've been having it at Copy-led Office for a long time. So I think the next question is also interesting. We should take that.
Okay. Yeah.
This
please
time,
go ahead, ma'am.
yeah. So what about in the case of low vision and visually impaired children with autism? Yes, so thank you, Rima, for asking this, because we're so much into autism, we really hadn't thought about it. And as the other questions were being taken, I saw this, and I think, yeah. So I haven't worked with visually impaired children, but I'm just speaking with what I think should be done. I'd use a lot of texture-based materials with the list of activities there, and I'd give a lot of importance to auditory input. I'd do that. So that's what I would do. But you'd have to work very closely with someone who's been trained to work with visually impaired children. And well, I haven't had that, but I'm speaking out of what I think should be the approach. Modify all of that to a lot of texture-based, make modifications within the activities that we've suggested. I hope I've answered that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you all of you for your participation. It was a very, very interactive session. Looking forward to see you all in our next one, which is tomorrow. And we will be covering all our intervention manuals tomorrow. So please log in and come on time. See you all. Have a great day ahead.